Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Trades Talk. I'm here with my co-host Maggie, and today we are interviewing Niwar Nasim of Nasim Landscaping out of Washington. Maggie, what were some of your big takeaways from today's episode?
Yeah, so Niwar is one of my favorite people to talk to. Every single time I talk to him, it's just like a smile on my face. There's goosebumps at multiple points. And so I think the biggest takeaways are Niwar's story, the idea of understanding your opportunity and just knowing where you came from. And I think that our listeners are really going to love hearing about his growth and, the struggles along the way. He really becomes vulnerable and tells us about the struggles he faced. But ultimately, his story is just one of a kind, really humbles you. How about you, Justin?
Yeah, I think the perspective that Niwar gives us in terms of what he and his family went through coming to this country, the challenges of growth, and the continuous progress that he made no matter what happened in his life. Every year, he just kept making moves and making progress. I feel the story is very humbling while also being very relatable. And they were a very small landscape company for a very long time. And just in the last 5 years, did they crest the 1 million mark? And then now they're knocking on the door of 8 figures. It's just an incredible story and one that's going to, I think, be captivating from start to finish.
Yeah, I think that some pivotal things too, he's hit some milestones that are really crucial for owners to go through. So he just opened up a new branch. He talks about that. Talks about where they're going and their vision for the future and how that shifted. Because where they were 5 years ago, the vision for the future was nowhere near what it looks like today. And I think that I'm so excited to see what Nasim Landscape's going to do in the next 3, 5, 10 years, because they're going to continue to become a bigger and bigger name in the industry. So, ready to dive in?
Yeah, let's go and talk to Niwar.
All right. We'd love to welcome Niwar to the podcast today. Niwar, you and I go way back to what, 2020, 2019, when we met
Yep.
during the Aspire onboarding process. But why don't you tell our listeners a little about yourself and your
Yeah.
company?
Well, thanks for having me on, Maggie and Justin. Really appreciate it. Yeah, we you're right. It was October, I want to say, or no, a little bit earlier, August of 2019, is when we originally started talking. That was right on the verge of when we were exploring Aspire. But a little bit about myself. Owner and operator, owner president of Nasim Landscape. We've been around since 1997. Second generation owner of the company. I took over the helm of my father in 2010. So really have ran the company since 2010. So 20, well, actually almost 24, almost 14 years now. I can't believe it. A little bit about myself. Came here from North Iraq, Kurdistan. So I'm Kurdish, my background, and we fled Saddam Hussein, actually the regime in the mid '90s. So that was pretty crazy. And my family and hundreds of other families, we were part of this asylum operation that happened, and won't get too much into that, but we were very, very blessed and fortunate to essentially have a free ride to the United States. And so uh, I remember we spent 3 months in the Guam Islands before we came to the States, and that was when they processed everybody and made sure there was no bad apples in the mix and all that. And then from there, they asked us, where do you guys want to move to? And I remember my father selected the Northwest Washington State specifically because I think the four season aspect was appealing to him, and there were some other families that had selected the area, and so that's kind of how we ended up in this place. And then he had some agricultural background, so the landscaping was it made sense for him to low barrier to start a truck and a mower. You can start making money, right? That's how that started. And I'll tell you a story because it kind of really helps shape sort of how my work ethic came from. And I remember coming in, typically with most people that come in as refugees, or we were as refugees, immigrants. in the beginning, there's a lot of sort of state aid type programs to help people kind of get acclimated and to get going. And I remember we got back when food stamps were actually the book. I don't know if you guys ever saw them or not. We got those, and I remember my father got a book of book stamps, early on. We're talking a month into it, and we actually were sponsored by a church, and we lived inside this church for a month. Shortly after that, we moved into an apartment, 8 people in the family, so it was really tough in a 3-bedroom apartment,
Wow.
super tough. Yeah, and I remember my dad it was like we were having dinner. I have vivid memories of this. It was such a long time ago. But my dad took the book of book stamps, and him and my mom there was some tension at the dinner table. I don't know what it was, but there was tension. We all felt it. And he took the book of book stamps and he literally tore it in front of us. And it was like, what the hell is he doing? Right? He's lost it. And my mom just started yelling and like, what's going on? And I just remember my dad making a point like, we're not here to live and just like live off the government basically. It was like sort of his way, like I'm gonna make a stand, I'm gonna make my point here. And him and my mom, like it was an altercation, and so his point was we're gonna roll our sleeves up, we're all gonna work. Like you guys aren't just gonna come here. And we were kids, mind you, like I was 10, and we're gonna work for our living. And so it was crazy. And so right after that, the lawn care business was born, and it was my dad literally and then back in my home country, he was actually a veterinarian with some agricultural business. So when he came here, he didn't want to take the time to reestablish his veterinary license just because the education and all that stuff that had to go behind it. So he just stuck to the landscaping made most sense.
Yeah.
So it was lawn care. It was. We were all going to school. After school, we were helping dad mow lawns, pull weeds, like it. So growing up, I never had, I didn't know what it was like to, hang out after school, ride bicycles, and I didn't have summer camping. I mean, it was like you go help your dad. Weekends, didn't know what a weekend was. We just worked, work is all we knew. It was kind of a sad, honestly. Growing up, just because coming from almost a third world country like I did, to a place that there's so much to do. There's parks, there's video games, there's all this to do. And we were like, nope, you're going to work. So it really helped kind of shape my work ethic.
So Niwar, as you're going through that as a child, I mean, were you thinking one day I want to take over this business, or were you like, let me get through this so I can go off when I'm 18 and go start my own life? I mean, what was going through your mind as a teenager during this time?
I did not. I'll be honest with you, because my dad he was always very tough. He was like a very tough guy. He was never took it easy on us, and so I certainly didn't have that type of mindset that one day I'm gonna take over this, or it's gonna be it was always my dad's dream. He wanted that family, thing and become like a big empire type thing. And it was very possible, but just wasn't in the cards. It wasn't meant to be. To be honest, for me personally, I thought the suit and tie thing was like this, what success was, right? I
Right.
thought of myself like I'm gonna be an executive somewhere and it was gonna be cool. And so that was during that process, that was all what I ever thought about.
And so what was the turning point? When did you decide, yeah, I'm gonna go after this and I'm gonna make this my career?
Yeah.
Was that directly after high school? Did you go to college? How did that come to be?
Yeah. So in high school, so I like for like 8 years, all we ever did was work, weekends work. So I kind of got tired of it, right? Almost like I don't want to say it was resentment, but I wanted to try something different. Like, man, I want to experience life. And so in high school, I got into sports. I got into actually cross country and track, got pretty good at it, and became like one of the top runners in the state. And so I was able to get a athletic scholarship to a smaller Division II school. I wasn't like nationally type good, but in the state I was pretty solid. And so I pursued that because it was just like it gave me freedom and allowed me to be part of a team. And I went off. I left, and the college is only half an hour, believe it or not, from where we live. But it was just far enough where I could go live on a dorm. I wanted to experience that life, so I left. But I left on not such great terms with my dad, and we kind of grew apart, and that was a really rough deal for me. And so for 2 years, actually, my dad and I didn't speak, and that really took a huge toll on me. But I was having a great time in school and living the dorm life, and being a good student and enjoying athletics, but I was missing back home. I was missing my dad. And so I made a tough call to say, you know what, I'm going to go back home and I'm going to kind of what's that word?
Rekindle the relationship.
Thank you. Yep, exactly. And that's essentially, and so I left my team. It was a very tough decision. I left all that behind. And that was right around when the recession, if you remember, 2007-ish or so. And my dad's business, essentially, you guys, what it was he had 90% of his portfolio in, exit one basket type of thing going. If you know what you've heard of KinderCare Learning Center, the national daycare chain, that was his business. That was essentially all that they did in the Puget Sound area of Western Washington. And so when we lost that contract, the company was almost upside down. So all that was happening while I was away. So when I came back, there was rumors that KinderCare was going to essentially kick out all the little guys like us out. And at that time, it was Brickman was moving to the West Coast. The Valley Crest thing was kind of happening, if you recall.
Yep.
And then the year after that, we got letter that we were just essentially the contract was going to go away. When that happened, the company was almost out of business. I transferred back to the University of Washington, go Huskies, at the time. And I finished my school there. So when I got out of school, post-recession, no jobs, nobody's hiring a kid out of college with a bachelor's degree. The only thing that was available really was like retail, if you were lucky, or just minimal. Like it was a really slow coming out of that recession. And so I went and worked that. I kind of pursued that sort of the sort of retail management thing. I did that for about 7 months, realized I hated it. And that was when I realized, damn, I really like working outside. I think it was Target actually, when I realized like, I don't enjoy going inside the store at like 6 a.m. And then Northwest, days are short in wintertime, especially. Yeah. I'd go in dark, come out dark. I'm like, dude, there's like no, like crazy. So all while I was working at Target for the 7 months I was there, I was doing like side hustle, like doing side projects and landscaping. And I was doing it's like weekend warrior type stuff, like because KinderCare was still funneling me like backyard or like landscape renovation projects. So I'd do like $20,000-$30,000 jobs in 2 days, and I'd bring like a super crew in with me, and we just go crazy, and it was awesome. Like we were like no overhead. It was just like we did that for like almost like a year, and I realized right there, Justin, that was it. I enjoyed equipment, dirt, plants, being outside, and just a freedom. And so that was my calling right there. I knew it. I was able to reflect back on all those years of growing up. And then I realized, man, I have an opportunity here. I'm in my early mid-20s, got nothing to lose. I don't like retail. I've got this experience. I've got 2 trucks here, a couple of trailers. My dad has no energy to build us up. My siblings don't want anything to do with the business. Hey, Dad, I'd like to do this. Let's work out a deal. And so we did. 2009-10, son handshake deal. And that's when it started.
So, okay. Yeah. So you're taking it over. You guys, I'm imagining 10, 15 employees. How many employees did you guys have at this point when you were a handshake deal taking the business over from your dad?
No, it was just myself and a part-time employee that worked for my dad back when we had the KinderCare. We were doing when I took over, I remember just a little over $60,000 in revenue that first year.
Wow.
So you guys were really at the beginning.
There was no company. It was literally myself and this guy that was, again, part-time guy that I just had come with me so we could get through a route. I mean, it was like starting all over again. The most my dad ever did as a company was like just under $500,000. So it was a lot of money, but he managed it so incredibly well. Where that, I mean, he was able to buy real estate and do, because it was like almost a 10-year span that he did that for, and it did incredibly well. When I took it over, because we'd lost everything, it was like almost $60,000. I remember that, and it was
Yeah.
rough going, man, because there's all the stuff that you want to do, but it's like, nope, you got to roll your sleeves up, man. And so it was super difficult in the very beginning, but it was no employees, just a part-time guy. And it was going out there and finding people that would give you a chance. I mean, it was like that.
Yeah. So
So
what was your plan at that point? Was it just to work in the bit like in the business? Did you know you knew you wanted to grow it because you said, okay, this is my
yeah,
opportunity. So
yeah,
what plan did you put in place? What steps did you take to then get to your next aha milestone?
yeah. I remember, when I was finishing up my undergrad, we would get the lawn and landscape and landscape manage all the trade journals. And I remember at that time, see, Justin asked me earlier about when did you know? I think it was always there. I just didn't I didn't have that moment when I realized I didn't want to be in a box all day. But I was reading trade journals I was always interested in the industry. And I remember vividly reading magazines and reading about guys, and I forget which companies exactly, but they're still around today. I don't remember back then, but it was around a recession time because that was a big deal, right, for the whole world. And I remember reading about companies that had sort of made it or were making it through that recession and what their secret was. And it was guys that were doing maintenance. And I remember reading about a lot of companies that were 100%, design build, and they had just tanked or just didn't make it. And I remember picking up huge lessons that if I ever do this myself, that I would always embrace maintenance and, most importantly, not make the same errors that my dad did, right? Diversify, not have all my eggs in one basket. So to your question, what was my plan? Well, I had to start all like from the as if like I was starting up a new company. The only thing that I had was a name that was kind of, people knew in the neighborhood, I suppose, in the local community, and a couple of trucks. So that's still better than somebody that's starting out with a loan, let's say, for example. So I still felt like I had a somewhat of a heads up than most people. But when I started, I made a commitment that I am in and all in. There's no ifs or buts. I am all in. And so for me, it was about learning and professionalism. How do I learn to do this and learn as much as I can, as fast as I can, and so I'm reading everything under the sun. I met at the Lawn and Landscape Conference. If you saw my, I think it was Ed LaFlamme. He posted this video, and he was interviewing me. I read his book. It was called Green Side Up. I remember in 2010 when I was able to take over, I picked up his book, and I just remember and I'm not a reader. I'm starting to get more and more into it, but I remember picking that book up and I just could not put it down because it was almost like a step by step on what to do and how to grow a landscaping company essentially. And I told Ed that actually just a few months ago, and he got a big chuckle out of that. But that book was like big. It was like my sort of Bible. It was like, this is it. Stick to this game plan, and you're gonna make it one day, whatever that make it meant. And so that was huge for me because it was a big motivating thing. And then from there, it was just literally, it was you guys just want. So at that time, I didn't have any commercial stuff. I had to prove myself. It was all about just making a name out of yourself. And so it was one house after another. And I'm the guy that's out there pulling the weeds. I'm the guy that's making the dump runs, getting off early while my guy finishes the day so I could go do a couple of estimates, that type of thing. I mean, for the first 2 to 3 years, that is all I did. With that, we're adding a couple of employees here and there, building up a route. Now I've got a couple of decent crew foreman, I'm able to now start dabbling into some projects where I'm like essentially the project manager, I'm the estimator, I'm the foreman, I'm all that, right? Just what you always hear about people that are building up. I was doing all that. And so for the first 3 to 5 years, that was the story of my life. And then I realized when we started doing, getting close to $500,000 in revenue, I needed a system. So started dabbling into some things, finally settled with Element. I think it was 2016. Was on Element for a couple of years. And stop me if I am getting ahead of myself here, but this is kind of where the growth starts happening.
So 2016, how much revenue were you guys doing when you decided to bring on that software?
Yeah. So I think we were just around 500,000, maybe slightly less. I knew that I knew we were going to grow, and I know it was not we were going to grow. So I wanted to put something in place early on that was going to help me grow with it. Because all I was using is just, creating estimates out of QuickBooks. And I knew that wasn't like the thing to do. And so got on board with LMN 2016. And that sort of helped us to a degree, sort of to get from that $500,000 mark to about a million ish, a little bit. I think the most we ever did while being on LMN was 1.2 mil.
I think what you said, there's a comment you made there that I think a lot of business owners will resonate with, but some are struggling with. And that's, I knew QuickBooks, doing estimates out of QuickBooks wasn't the answer. And so in my mind, I know that, you know that, but how did you come to that conclusion? Like, what were you hearing? What was the deciding factor that was not the route?
For sure. Well, QuickBooks is an accounting software, right? It allows you to estimate out of it, but it didn't have the scheduling. It didn't have, all the functionalities that many of these softwares in our industry offer, especially today. So I was looking for more. I was looking for, job costing. I was looking for routing, you can
Full
do
control. Yeah.
Full control, exactly. Even though I wasn't, again, big enough, I had aspirations that I was going to become at least $1 million company. And at the time I was like, man, making $1 million like that's it. Like if I hit $1 million, we made it, right? And so I knew that QuickBooks just wasn't it because it was so limited. And that's not what it is. It's an accounting software. It's not a business management software.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you guys are going into 1.2 mil 2017. It sounds like 2018. I know you're a lot bigger today.
Yeah.
So, over the last 5-6 years, how did you guys go from where you were at 1 million to where you guys are today? Maybe you can share a little bit about where you are today as a company in terms of revenue and employee size, if you don't mind, so our listeners can put a picture to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So 2018, 2019 is when our revenue started kind of slowing down. So 2017, 18, 19, we were like 1 mil, then like 1.1, 1.2. That might be respectable growth for a lot of people, maybe. For me, I felt like it was starting to slow down. It was too stagnant for me. And I couldn't get out of my way. And I realized that the problem was really me. And I was still the solo operator guy responsible for everything. And we had just enough maintenance at that time where I was ready to bring somebody else on so I could focus on the project side of the business. I did that by bringing somebody on from a larger landscape company, and he had brought a lot of experience with him. When I was able to convince him to come on board with me in 2019, the very next year we more than doubled the size of the company, just simply from essentially allowing him to run maintenance for me while I focused on projects. So we went from 1.2 to 2.6 in 2020. So when that happened, I'm like, aha, I got to figure it out. It's people, right? I just got to delegate. That's it. we're just now, we're gonna keep going. And we did. I started and we're still growing. We're humming. 2020, 2021, we went from 2.6 to 4.8 in 2020. Yeah, 2021. So that was another more than double a year, right? So it's like, dang, what's going on? Like we're starting to get some attention, buying trucks, equipment. I'm getting a little ahead of myself because I skipped the Aspire part, I believe. Yeah, because 2019 it was actually shortly after I brought on my first, really, I would call serious. I gave him the title of operations manager. I'm not sure if that was the right title to give him that guy, but it was essentially somebody that was going to run our maintenance operations. And we were on Element at that time. And then I realized if we're going to scale like the way we want to, and the company that he had come from was actually Landcare. So they were an Aspire company, right? And so he recommended like we should look into Aspire. Like that company is legit. My brother actually, prior to bringing him on, also my oldest brother actually was also at Landcare for a brief stint, and he talked great about Aspire, but he's like, you're probably not big enough. And we dabbled into it. The pricing at that time was just pretty crazy for me. So that was around the Element time. And so I previously had looked into Aspire, but we were too small, well under $1 million, not ready for it. So when I brought that one guy on from Landcare and he talked about Aspire, I was like, there was just a gut feeling like maybe right now is the time. And that's actually when I reached out to Maggie at Aspire. When we got connected, when she was in her role at that time, and we decided to go for it. It was late 2020, and we decided to go live in beginning of 2021. And so so from 2020, 2.6 million to 4.8 literally the following year. First year on Aspire, we doubled, more than doubled again. And again, not to get ahead of myself, 2021 4.8 to 2022 we went to we did 7.6 mil in 2022, and then
Wow,
we just
quick growth.
quick growth. Yeah, and so all that time you're growing, you're adding the trucks, the people, you're adding, and you're bursting at all the same, and we're doing this profitably. I say that because right when I joined Aspire, they connected me with the Herring Group. So like you, Justin, we used the Herring Group for fractional CFO, and so they were able to really help us kind of dig into our numbers, really figure out how to get us set up right initially before we got too deep into Aspire. So really had understood my numbers and put us in a good position. And we've been doing this, all this crazy growth that we've had. We've done it, with our net margins in the teens, which is, for our industry, that's pretty great.
Yes, really
that's
good.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah. So super fortunate. Now there's been mistakes like you can imagine throughout that time, but yeah, we just finished up 2023, just short of 10 million. So we're knocking on 10 million. We're right in that, but we've got some pretty big goals for 2024. Hoping just north of 12 mil is kind of what we're budgeted for. As far as employees, right now we're just under 80, but in season, we'll be well over 80 probably. Especially with the numbers that we're hoping to achieve, we'll be close to 100 employees this year. We think.
Wow, I was actually,
awesome.
If I had to guess, I was trying to put a estimate on how many employees you'd have. I was thinking right around the 120 mark. So the fact that you're doing that revenue with right around 80, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, it's been efficiency. That's the name of the game. And I honestly, not to sound like an Aspire poster child here, because that's Justin's job.
I mean, you
he's
can do that all you want.
Yeah. But honestly, after installing that system, you talk about efficiencies and doing more with less. You guys, we've been able to do all this with just one person in the back end as far as administratively. So we have one branch administrator. And she's phenomenal, and I will always talk for her. But you pair someone that's incredible like that with a system like Aspire. I mean, you can be pretty special. You can knock out a lot of overhead. Now that's not a sustainable model. I'm not saying that's what people should do. You got to be able to have additional support, and we're certainly in the process of that. I think we're a bit lean, as a matter of fact. But yes, we certainly do a high number of volume, do it profitably with less. And I know several peers that frankly have way more employees than us, and we're probably doing $3 more million in revenue than they are, which I don't get it. It's
Yeah.
mind-blowing.
Well, I think it goes to the efficiencies because, to have that few of employees and doing that revenue, you have to be good every day and every minute of every day. So,
Absolutely.
hats off to you for making that happen and doing that profitably. When we look back, let's just look back at the last 5 years where you've gone from basically, in 2019 at 1.2 to last year at just shy of 10 million, basically 10x your company in 5 years. I did something similar with my company from 2015 to 2020, and it was a heck of a ride. So when you look back, what were the top three things that you would say helped you grow and helped you grow profitably? Like, what did you do as a CEO owner that helped to get you from 1 to 10 million? Because that is a heck of a leap.
Yeah. I appreciate that question, and I'm certainly familiar with your background as well, Justin. It's not easy, but simply put, it's not. I also don't think it's a secret either, and it shouldn't be a secret. It's for us, speaking for myself and our experience, it's systems, people, and not necessarily in that order. If you want to include processes as part of that, but yeah, people, systems or people, and then I would probably also add embracing like fear and not being like not being scared, man. My dad was very he was like because of his age, there was a lot of opportunities for him, but he didn't he didn't want to take them because I think age had a lot to do with that. So I took a lot more calculated risks than most people, and knock on wood, they've always paid off. So what do I mean by risks exactly? Like diving into snow and ice management. Now, a lot of companies do that. In our area, there's numerous companies, as a matter of fact, that do it, especially the bigger players. They all delve into it. But mid-sized and smaller companies haven't quite figured it out, or maybe they're willing to take the risk to dive into that. When I don't want to say I figured it out because I'm still learning that part of the industry. There's a lot to it. It was like you're talking about adding fuel to our fire. When I figured out how to like do snow and ice and replicate what the larger players are doing, you're talking about adding incredible amount of revenue at a really high margin to an already fast moving, I don't want to call it a rocket ship, but we were growing like crazy. And so, I know that's more than three things I mentioned there, but that's what
makes
happened.
sense. So to summarize that, it's like system and process, it's having the right people, and then it's jumping into new markets and maybe taking those risks that your competition, who are probably still stuck at 1 or 2 million, just they didn't have the confidence to jump into.
Yeah. And because snow and ice is such there's risk, right? You're talking about it's
liability,
a very risky business.
Someone falls.
Absolutely. Very risky business, but can be incredibly lucrative if you do it right and truly understand how it's done. So that's it. I mean, and I share this with anybody that's asked, dude, where the hell did you guys come from? Or how did you guys do this? Or, what's been yours? And there's no secret. I've always shared more than I feel like my local peers do in our community. It's one of the reasons why I love going out into the national scene and talking to guys like yourself and others. People are more willing to talk and share. It's been weird. Like in my local community, I don't get that sense. Everybody's just a little bit more guarded. They don't like to share too much. And I don't know if that's the same in other communities. Maybe it is, but I've helped out several smaller peers of mine just because I believe in that. I believe in sharing and helping others. There's plenty to go around for everybody. I don't have it all figured out, but if I know something that works for me, no problem sharing it with somebody else. There's no secret.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
appreciate that so much.
Mhm.
Maggie, I wanted to ask you a question. You know, you've seen Niwar's growth and their company come from join and aspire, and you did the demos and you probably saw where they were and where he is now. From a partnership standpoint, Maggie, like what have you seen from the outside that Nasim Landscaping has done that maybe some of the other companies who are still stuck at that 1 to 2 million haven't done? And
Yeah.
how can you contribute to that?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing when I first met Niwar, um, they were small. They were right around that $1.2 million mark. And I had very honest conversation with them and said, you might be a little bit too small, but also your growth and your vision isn't. So a lot of times people with us think about Aspire, they think, okay, my company is too small for it, too small for it. Well, that if you want to stay at 1.2 million, probably is probably too big of a system for you. But if you want to grow like Niwar did, and the conversations we had were all about not where he was today, but where he wanted to be in 5, 10 years, I think that's the difference. And the other thing I want to say, in all of his growth, the phrase that I think of, I always think of when I think of Niwar is understanding your opportunity. Because of his background and where he was raised, how he was raised, he's been through more stuff in his life than probably 10 people combined that like Justin, you,
Yeah.
myself, and 8 other people. And I think because of that, he's had to understand his opportunity at a whole different level and stay grateful through the whole thing, whereas some people can lose focus, get off track, we didn't grow this year. Newer is just always happy to be where he's at, what he's doing, and maintain that positive attitude of understanding his opportunity. I have a follow-up question though, because again, with my job, I get to see a lot of companies grow. And one piece that always seems to be very difficult through growth is maintaining personnel, culture, positive, like you yourself can control yourself, but then there's also all these other people that you have to control their attitude and hiring and all of that. So Niwar, what are some things that you guys are doing or have done that have helped maintain your company's culture and provide for your people?
I so appreciate the prior comments and then the question itself. Um, so I've been talking about a lot of exciting success, and it has been truly. I'm not underselling any of that. It's been a remarkable run, but it's been a painful run, and I don't shy from that. It has not been easy, particularly this past season. I mean, you know, growth is fun and exciting, but it's also painful, even if you're profitable. So, you know, you talked a little bit about people, and that's been the absolute biggest challenge is people. And because when the way we've grown is as in terms of how rapid it's been, you don't really have the time to focus on specific areas like people or hey, we got to focus on you. So much is happening so fast. You're not really taking the time to really hyper focus in some areas like you should be. And so I mentioned earlier there's been some symptoms to the growth, and with our fast growth, we realized I would say early last year we were having some culture type issues. As I was growing so fast, I had to bring on people that could help sustain that growth and to help us continue that momentum. So I was bringing on people that had good resumes that were referred to me by trusted local industry type people, but looking back, they weren't exact excuse me, um they weren't the best fits because those people are no longer with us. In the excuse me, in the last year, we've had three of our higher level managers leave the company. Some of it was by design, some of it was going to happen, but they were able to, you know, leave before it was going to happen. And so all good people, just not great fits for the company. At the time, I didn't know this. I went by, hey, they've got the resume. They've managed this portfolio before, or they worked at such and such company, so they must be a solid fit. You know, I mentioned culture index earlier. We realized through, you know, there's the term growing pains. We were having a ton of growing pains, specifically with accountability. And looking back, it was because I had brought on people again with good backgrounds, but not good fits for our company. And so it was causing a lot of culture type issues for our company. We had people that, you know, to be part of a fast growing company, you got to share that. You got to be with the momentum. You got to be with the program. And us being where we're at, being a smaller but growing into sort of mid-sized type company, we embraced technology right when we got on Aspire. And I went everything that was good. We're talking about, you know, IPS, Weathermatic, anything that was sort of technology that was going to benefit the company. I'm like, I'm all about it. Let's do it. It takes a certain type of mindset to accept that and to truly buy into that. You got to be growth minded. You can't be a naysayer. And so I brought on some naysayers through that growth journey in these last 2 years. Didn't know they were naysayers, just went off of their resumes. I'm like, these guys have worked for big companies, so they got to be good, right? Wrong. They weren't good fits for the company. Good people, bad fits for the company. And
Yeah.
so that's where the culture index right now that we're diving into, it's been literally mind blowing, absolute fascinating for us, because you're talking about having a chance to know somebody's makeup before you even get them to the interview table. You know how they're going to react or how they're wired. There's these certain traits. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, had I known this early on, I would have been able to maybe not bring that guy on. And where would we be if we didn't have this person? And again, it sounds like I have a thing against anybody that's worked. It's not that at all. I'm actually super grateful for the people that have come here and that have now left, because they made their mark, and we learn. You know, you learn from your adversity and all of that. So it's just it's all about bringing on the right people, and how do you do that, and how do you increase your chances of bringing on the right fit so that it fits the culture that you want to bring. We feel like we've hopefully found that solution and some of the tools that we're working on right now. And we're so excited, you guys, to move forward and move the needle.
And I think you're approaching it in a good way. You're approaching it from a system standpoint with Culture Index. And, you know, for those who don't know, Culture Index is basically, it's not a personality test or IQ test. It's really just a fundamental behavioral test of what you like to do. Like, some people like to do recurring tasks and they want to enter invoices all day. Other people want to do something new every day and be on a piece of equipment, doing things with their hands. And so if you take someone who's a great operator of an equipment and you put them at a computer for 9 hours a day, they're just going to burn out. So they stretch. You can stretch so much in a direction that you don't enjoy fundamentally, but at some point you're going to break if you're always stretching. So we use a very similar tool. It's called Predictive Index, and it's really two products from the same family, and it's been a game changer for us. So I applaud you guys for bringing on so much new technology in such a short period of time. But, you know, I think this goes back to what you said earlier, which is taking risks. And I talk to a lot of people and they ask, man, how'd you grow? Like, what'd you do? And I kind of ask you the same question, and I loved your answers. But what it comes down to, I think a lot of people don't realize, is you have to be willing to take major risks despite fear, despite maybe even being the unpopular guy in the company, because you feel like you're trying to do too much at once and your team's maybe not backing you 100%, but you know it's the right thing for the company. And despite all that, you still have managed to progress and innovate and move forward. And my next question, where I'm leading to with this, is where does the future, what does the future look like for Nasim Landscaping? What is your guys' 5-year target, 10-year target? Have you established that? Where do you see your company going? And, you know, what can we look forward to as we continue to follow your guys' journey?
Yeah, I appreciate the sort of breakdown on what culture index. You're spot on. That's exactly what it is. And in order for us to get into your question here, the people part has to be right. You know, systems and people part has to be right for us to not just sustain the growth, but to have future expansion goals, which in our case, that's what we want to do. We've opened up a satellite location that we just officially turned into a second branch to support our operations just south of us. And so we want to, you know, sort of replicate the branch model. It's appealing. You know, I pay a lot of attention to the private equity activity that's been in our industry now for some time, and what they're after, what they're attracted to. So that's big. You know, being in my position, in your case, Justin, too. You know, we naturally pay attention to those things. Um, and just getting to the size that we have, we've been able to garner some private equity interest, which is incredibly appealing and flattering, and all the above. Shows us that we're doing something right, right? And so that being said, you know, now that we have a second branch in place, systems are getting dialed in. We're starting to kind of bring in some key people. We want to continue that with that momentum. So we want to, there are some key markets in our area, and that's sort of Seattle market that we want to get into, that they're very competitive. They're, you know, all of your big name players are here, but there's opportunities, and you can get into these markets. So as long as you've got, you know, the right people and the right systems, it's fair game. You can get in and compete. And so over the next 5 years, I hope to launch another branch. Really want to solidify these 2 branches that we have now and become rock solid, and then looking to open up another branch, maybe 2, depending on how growth goes. You know, I know that we can't double year after year after year. That's not a sustainable model. So I know growth definitely will have to come back down to earth. But the branch model is highly appealing, and that's what I intend on doing. Surrounding myself with the right people that embrace that model, that are looking for that because of the opportunities that will come with that. And so as far as revenue targets, you know, 20-25 mil over the next 5-7 years, I think is definitely doable, if not sooner. Just we have to make good decisions. And I'm paying attention to guys like yourself and what you're doing, and others around the country, and it's doable, right? You just got to follow the recipe. There's no shortcuts. And you just got to believe in yourself. There is absolutely risk taking, and I still make risks. There's days I'm like, man, was that overly aggressive? There's been some of those, but that's just part of the journey, and you take the punches as they come, and you just keep going. You just got to believe, you know. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
Justin, it sounds like we got another 30 million by 2030 goal here.
yeah.
Oh yeah. I think that sounds like it's about right.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Niwar, on opening your second branch. Like that alone, you skirted over that, I think, a little too fast.
Yeah.
And that is a big accomplishment. Not only just because like your company is to a size to sustain that, but just that's a very tangible way to show you working on the business and not working in the business, because you
Yeah.
can't be in 2 places at once. So
Right.
when you have 2 branches, you're going to have to hire those key people and put systems in place, continue to put systems in place to run two facilities with never being able to be at both places at once. So I think that's something that we shouldn't skirt over at all.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned no shortcuts. At the end of the day, I totally agree with you. You have to put in the work. And listening to your story, I've got so much, you know, so much respect for what you've done and what your family has done and where you've come from and how you must have had to work so hard and have this discipline as a young child that really I can see it. It shows up in you as we talk, that discipline, that hard work ethic, that is, I would say, at the root cause of you guys' growth. I mean, I always say, so goes the leader, goes the rest of the organization. And the fact that you're able to set such a high bar in terms of working hard and working on the business, I'm sure it trickles down into your operation. And it's probably one of the reasons you guys are able to do 10 million with 80 to 100 employees when everyone else is needing 120 plus people to do the same amount of revenue. So that's something that it's a big takeaway for me. And I hope our listeners that at the end of the day, there is no shortcut. You have to get in, you have to do the work, you have to take risks. And going from 1 to 10 million doesn't just happen. It requires hard work and discipline and a lot of risks. So well done on that.
Thank you so much.
We're getting towards the back end of the episode here, but I did want to touch on a few things. Maybe we can do like a lightning round on it. First off, you mentioned before we came on air that you joined a peer group. Can you give us just a 2-minute summary? Why'd you join? How's it going? And would you recommend it?
Absolutely. I'm a huge learner. I love to replicate and look at others that have done it, such as guys like yourself, Justin. I think you're younger than me, but still, I mean, I've been following your story for quite a while. And then others around the country that have done it. And I'll tell you, they're doing the same thing. They're asking questions. They're inquisitive. They're they don't stop learning. And so I'm simply just following that same type of model. I've just got into, as Maggie would know, I've been attending some of the, the conferences now, so the Elevate, to the tech conference in London Landscape. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is this is where I gotta be. This is where I have to be around these people. And it's just that. And then you start realizing, damn, like there's some super good, smart people here. And I've been kind of dabbling on, the peer group thing for quite a while, and it took me about 2 years to finally commit with the Bruce Wilson peer group. And I love the Grow Group and Marty Grunder and, Vince and all those guys. I've got so many great peers with them as well. But Steve Steele with, Bruce Wilson, him and I just kind of developed a relationship, and it just, it made sense. And I'm a gut guy. I go with my gut feeling a lot, and I don't think you can go wrong with going with either one. And there's others that are
Totally.
industry as well. So I went with one that we're the smaller company out of the 4 other companies. So that was really awesome. They decided to let me in, and they interviewed me and realized that I've got, growth mindset and have a lot to offer. And it meant a lot to me, and super grateful to be part of that. And simply joined because I wanted to learn from those guys and their operations. And some of these guys make me look at myself and my operation. I'm like, dude, I'm like, even though we've had a remarkable growth and I'm proud of us and what we've done, these guys in their opera, I'm like, holy cow, like, dude, I got to get my shit together. Excuse my language, but we got to get ourselves together, right? So it's just, I need that. I need to look at constantly raising the bar, and so it's just cool to be around others that care as much and they have the same energy, and it raises the bar. Everybody propels growth, and it's a good type of competitive nature.
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered the question.
No, you did. I mean, at the end of the day, I think peer groups are not so much about who's organizing it, more about who's in the group.
Yeah.
And you can't go wrong. And what my big takeaway through the growth is, and listening to your story, is whatever you do, just move the ball forward, raise the bar every day. As long as you're making progress, even if it might not seem like the right progress, and maybe in retrospect, it wasn't the right progress. As long as you're moving the ball forward every day, you're going to be better. And you're going to maybe go down the wrong road and figure it out, have to kind of retrack your your path there, but at the end of the day, you still progressed from where you were, and it's more about doing something than
Yeah,
necessarily doing the right thing.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So no, that's great. And Maggie, as we think about this, what are some of your big takeaways coming from today's episode?
Yeah, I think that what you said is right. Also, if you're gonna do something, go all in with it, right? Commit to it, because a lot of the times these peer groups, if you just go into it half-ass, and pardon my language, you're gonna get half the result out of it. But if you go, in with the full intention and commit to it, that's where you're really gonna see value. I know Justin just got back from a peer group trip and had a fantastic time. And I wish sometimes as a vendor to landscapers that I could be in some of these peer groups, because I can't even imagine the conversations and thoughts and ideas that go around with some of these meetings. And also, you have people around you to humble you, right? Because if they'll see things about your business that you're doing wrong, and they're not afraid, like they have no reason not to tell you. So I think that all of that is right on key. I'm so glad that you guys are both in peer groups, because they're crucial for all of the trades, not just landscaping. Landscaping's got some of the best ones, but definitely for all the trades. Niwar, so kind of how we're wrapping up the episode here, and one thing we always ask, I know you are a committed listener to Trades Talk, so we appreciate that. So this is coming. We always ask for your trade secret. So can you give our listeners a secret that you've learned through your incredible history growing up, watching your dad taking over the business? What is something that you have learned just by doing what you've done?
Yeah. God, there's so many different angles I can take with this, but I'll just say this. I never forget where I came from. Being a kid from a war-torn country, running away from one of the worst dictators of humanity, I always think about where I came from. And, living in America, it's literally not a single day goes by where I'm like, how freaking lucky am I to be in this country? It like every single day, there's like a moment, whether it's through talking to my wife, like interacting with my kid, to dealing with a client or an employee, to driving on the road. There's always a moment where I think about, like, man, why me? How did I get so lucky? And I don't take that lightly. I take that so seriously because I feel like I'm so incredibly lucky. And so I turn that into fire and passion and I just, Maggie, you mentioned earlier, taking advantage of these opportunities. And that's what it comes down to for me. There's so many opportunity that God has given everybody. And it doesn't matter what your background is and where you've come from. And it's a shame to let opportunities pass you by, no matter what your life circumstances are. There's always a way to be positive and to move forward and to make something out of nothing. That's it for me. I'm a reflector. I reflect a lot, and that's I always go back to that. And that's what lights my fire all the time, and it's what keeps me going. It's not that I feel like I'm smarter than anybody else. I'm not. Um, I have a lot of areas that I'd like to get better at and improve on, but I seize the moment and I take advantage of opportunities as they come. And yeah,
Yeah, I think that's great. Remembering where you came from is a important lesson regardless of your career. You don't have to be a landscape business owner. We did Justin's episode. We also recorded my episode, and it's going to come out here soon. And telling your story is one of the most important and impactful things you can do, because it humbles you, and
yeah,
it takes you back to ground zero to remember, I've done all of this, and look where I'm at today.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Justin,
The
final
theme
thoughts?
I the theme I heard through that was gratitude, and having gratitude and being grateful every single day for the good things in your life. Even though I'm sure we can all, and our brains kind of automatically do this, we can all look at those negative situations and the challenges and the things we aren't or haven't done right. When you have employee issues and you lose a key player, they leave or you have to terminate them, you can easily go down to like a really negative mindset.
Yep.
But from what I'm hearing, and a big takeaway from this whole conversation today has been be grateful for where you are, because if you look back 10 years, all of us in life, I think, have grown so much and have progressed so much and have given a lot to the industry, to our families, to our employees, to our community. So it's really important that we just live in that state of gratitude as much as possible. No matter what's going on in life, it could always be worse. And if you're grateful, it's really hard to be stressed and grateful at the exact same moment. I don't even know if it's possible. So the more grateful you can be, I mean, the less stressed you'll end up being at the end of the day. And I think that's my takeaway. Appreciate the wisdom and the experience share there.
Absolutely. Well said.
Well, congratulations on your growth. I'm excited to circle back in a few years and see you guys at 20 million. I mean, I think you guys are just a few years away from that.
Yeah, no, it's crazy to think, man. I remember thinking when I read that book by Ed LaFlamme that 1 million was like the number. And it's crazy, you know, like, and honestly, the numbers, it's not the motivating factors for me. It's they come as the journey goes. It's for me, man, you know, seeing people being able to get their first mortgage, buy their first car, that's it. That's it for me, man. You know, being able to, I took my kid on a trip for the first time on an airplane. And
Yeah.
thank you for allowing me to get like you guys like that goosebumps. And that is it for me. You know, we have an incredible and modern fleet. We so many cool things that you can get excited. I used to be like into that, right? Don't care. Like the
Yeah.
flashy stuff. It's awesome. Gotta have it because you gotta use it to do the work. But what gets me is just that. It's just the differences that you can make in people's lives. It's the ultimate gratitude,
Yeah.
satisfaction.
Well, my life has gotten better since knowing you, Niwar and Justin. So
That's all.
thank you so much for your time today. I can't wait for our listeners to hear this episode because your story is so important. And yeah, thank you so much.
I'm incredibly thankful for the both of you for doing what you do and, you know, putting out the great content that you do and for just being such good stewards of our you know industry. And I, you know, continue to hope to stay connected and you know grow our friendships as time goes on.
Yes,
Awesome.
for sure.
It's great. Good to know you more today.
Likewise. Thanks you guys. I appreciate your time.